Eugene, Springfield, Lane County, Oregon. Support our work. Make a donation at STRPOD.com. Thank you for listening to Spent the Rent podcast. And now, here's your host, Patty Rose.
Welcome to the Spent the Rent podcast. I am your host, Patty Rose. My guest today is the Mayor of Springfield and also a candidate for Lane County Commissioner, Sean VanGordon. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's the first time I've done it since you've been a citizen of Eugene.
I know, and that's why I wanted to kind of keep having the opportunity to. I'm a big Springfield person. You know, I grew up in Springfield. I went to Springfield High and then South Eugene. But Springfield is near and dear to my heart, and I've learned so much from you guys because I started following. You know, you had been in the city council because you were in the city council for 10 years.
Yep.
And you moved here in 2001. So I think as somebody that's lived here since like 94, you're somebody that I actually believes has yourself staked in the town, you know? And so 20 years, over 25, you know, so you're a resident. And a lot of people come here and they want to get involved, which is great, you know, but do they know that the community? That's always a question, you know? So, but I love Springfield, and I started following the city council in Springfield because I was like, I want to get this lower level, these seats that are kind of the baseline of when you're actually starting to get into a bigger seat. I mean, I think it goes, you know, city council and then the mayor and then county commissioner. So then when previous mayor Christine Lundberg, when she resigned, you were probably next in line. Everybody agreed. I think it was a unanimous vote that it was like, let's move him up to the mayor. And now you've what, two terms?
It is technically 2 terms on my second term.
Is there term limits on mayor?
No, there is not. When you replace somebody, you go to election faster. So it seems like I've been running longer than I actually have been.
Right. So now I want to say too, I mean, this is kind of taboo to talk directly to you about. I hope it's not, at least. That the mayor, a lot of people, and I've talked about this on my podcast, a lot of people don't realize that the city council and the mayor, they do not get paid in Springfield. It's in the Springfield charter. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And then, so the county commissioner it becomes a full-time gig. I mean, it becomes like, is that true? I mean, it depends. I mean, it's the one thing I've learned real quick about what the Lane County commissioners do on the board that they're on is that they are huge in disaster relief.
Yep.
You know,
so to answer your question, most local jurisdictions, small towns, Springfield size and down, use volunteer councils and volunteer mayors, and that's pretty consistent across utility boards and school boards and all the things. And then in the Lane County charter, it is required that that being county commissioner is your full-time job.
Okay, so you worked your career. You moved here in 2001 to study economics, and then got a minor in political science. Is that correct? Or just a bachelor's in political science and then master's in economics?
Correct.
So, I mean, I think that's great because a lot of times people think economics, they think just money, but it comes down to figuring out, you know, the 40-hour work week and like all these different things and how much the cost of living, you know, and so it's money, but it's also how you apply that to government. So you've done a lot. So maybe you can speak on that.
Yeah. So my specialty in economics was something called industrial organization. So I studied cost and efficiency and how to make systems better. And that's kind of what I've done throughout my career, whether or not it's been with UPS or United Health Group.
Yeah. Oops. Not you. Oops. UPS. No. So you'd have to give up that gig if this wins. So you're not up for your seat. A lot of times when people are running for a higher seat, your mayorship will kind of carry over another couple of years if you're unsuccessful in this race, which we don't want that to happen. But yeah, so that's good because it's always interesting how that works. You know, I talked a lot about kind of like your history of getting here. It was just such good timing for me because I started kind of focusing on city government, and then I interviewed you, and then I interviewed Damian Pitts, who then took over for you in the city council, you know, and then I talked to Corey Rodley. A lot of people think that she may be next in line to be mayor. If you do, you know, if you are successful, I'm not sure how that's going to go. I think there'll be an election, but there'll be an interim situation.
Yeah, Councilor Rodley's running for John Lively's seat, so. Like, I don't know.
A state representative, right?
Correct.
Oh, wow. Okay. So let's talk about some of your accomplishments. The Mill Street construction, you know, long-term project that was started pre-pandemic and then was finished in 2025. Let's talk about that one first of all.
Yeah. So the Mill Street reconstruction that's the oldest street in Springfield. It had just basically run its whole course, and it needed to be rebuilt, right? So that includes sewer and bike paths and utilities. it's something that when I was on city council, we committed to the public to do. When we got the first street bond, we told them we were going to do two things: repave 42nd Street, which we've done, and repave Mill Street. And when the pandemic hit, obviously costs inflated, and we had to spend extra time and extra energy going out to make sure this thing got done, and following up with the voters to make sure what we promised we do, we actually completed.
That's awesome. I want to mention real quick, we're going to talk a little bit about roads in a little bit. I've planned for that, but I want to make sure to mention my friend Kristen, who's kind of like she's one of my best friends. She's my unofficial personal assistant, and she helps me with a lot of stuff that I struggle with sometimes. And she wanted me to tell you that you need to look at 28th. So shout out to Kristen for that.
And I will vouch for every road conversation that we've had. Has been 28 has been hard.
Well, that's good. That's good.
There's a lot of road work we need done.
I mean, I live in Eugene now, but like I still do have a lot of friends in Springfield. I was at a Super Bowl party over there yesterday. And I think you guys have done a phenomenal job, but we'll come back to roads. Okay. So let's talk about fiscal stability, the fiscal stability task force. Explain to me what that's all about.
Yeah. So like most governments, we've been going through our own set of fiscal challenges. This was trying to get a group of people together to look at everything that we do, from our costs to revenue to economic growth and invest in legislative changes to make sure that the city was on more stable fiscal footing. And if you go back to budget messages in the 90s, they're bringing this thing up. So this was a lot of work. I'm really appreciative to the entire community because we've been out talking about really tough things most of the summer to try to get a set of policies, basically passed to put us on better fiscal footing going forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I when I've gotten to know you better, you all have so far have ran in nonpartisan seats. Is the county commissioner still a nonpartisan seat?
Yes, it is.
And so for anybody that's not super versed on civics, that's basically you're not running as a Republican, you're not running as a Democrat, but you would call yourself an independent anyway. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm a non-affiliated voter, and that I really changed my party registration probably 10 years ago. People were starting to reach out and just be like, hey, what city councilor matches my party affiliation?
Yeah.
And at that point, I just came to the realization that the job's to serve everybody.
Yeah.
And if I could position myself in a way that makes it easier for people to understand I'm here to serve everybody, that would be that's the best for the community.
Even as a nonpartisan seat, when you're the mayor, you become an executive position to where you even more have to represent different people, because Alan Stout and I, Commissioner or City Councilor Alan Stout, he's a Republican, a registered Republican, but he has a nonpartisan seat. We've become good friends. Mm-hmm. And we have very different values. Well, I wouldn't say we have different approaches, because I think that we both have similar values. But the thing is that I've talked to him about how it's important to have a representation on the board, including the Catholic community. So he's a Catholic person. So, I mean, I want there to be more representation for the Latino community, but that's a different topic. But I just think that there's a value to have representation on boards. When it comes to executive, you better be representing the entire community.
Yeah, we are best when more people are involved.
100%.
And that comes from all the way to the smallest committee, all the way through the councils and the utility boards and school boards and parks boards.
I hope we can get a candidate that is viable, that is, to run for city council. I mean, I think Johannes Tadeo would be tremendous on the city council. He's somebody that back in, I don't remember what year it was, he used legal, and this is pre-Trump, but he used legal steps to get an ICE contract removed from the Springfield jail, and
yeah, that was about 2018.
And he did this at like 21 years old, so something like that. He's awesome. But I just there's never been a city councilor that is Latino. And it's a lot of times it's who steps up and runs, but I mean, yeah.
The best advice I've got for people is sometimes from your normal life of working and getting the kids ready for bed to feeling like you can sit on city council, that's just too far of a vision to have.
Right.
That really, if you can get on a library board or an arts commission or any commission, that may be a small enough step. And most people find out and they build the skill to actually do local government by doing that, right? So even if you don't want to do it today, just you beginning to volunteer and understand what's going on sets you up for success
100%
in the future, and then you can decide at that point.
And one of my criticisms early on of it seems like it's always the people that are in the wealth, and which is first of all not true, but second of all, it's because the people that actually can afford to spend the time to volunteer, they either have their spouse is the breadwinner or they're retired. And so that's why you do see an older representation a lot of times.
Yeah,
You don't fit that demographic. You're like 26, but like,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's been a minute. The current incarnation of the council is probably the most I've ever been on, where they've got the most people actually in the middle part of their career. It creates challenges because we do ask a lot of people. You've seen that in the fact that we've lost, we've had a couple of people have to leave to focus on family or jobs over that time frame. But like most people work on city council.
Yeah, we're going to see some big news too, and I'm not going to get into it today. I'd like to have one of the people that are being recalled, but the school board is having some volatility to where just miscommunications of goals and things. Heather Quasanza, she's one of the names that's been recalled, and I think she resigned. I think she technically did resign, and she's an incredible human being. And even Alan has told me, like, I really, really like her a lot. And so I think that this just, unfortunately, I think they're losing a good one that was fighting for the little guys. And so that's a whole different topic, but I'd like to get her on. But yeah, for people, there's some juicy stuff going on in Springfield city government.
There is a lot going on. 2025, there was a lot going on. 26, there's a lot going on. I mean, there's a lot of concerns. Obviously, if the economy is slowing down, people get more concerned. And we just have a lot of challenges as a community, and that we have to work through.
Yeah, and I think you've done a pretty good job on that. I mean, so far, it's tough. Talk about the state of the city for 2025, 2026, I guess.
This is always the part where it gets interesting, is when it's like you talk about 2025, but it's really the state of the city 2026.
So it's looking forward.
Yeah. So it's a combination of a report of what we've done and then what we want to do as a city. It is one of my charter requirements of my job is that I have to give a state of the city message to the community and it should be online relatively quick because they're still putting together the video. But this is our opportunity to talk about everything that we've done and highlight, great activity in the community. That includes work around Glenwood, that includes work around roads, that includes work around, clean water. And mainly, get people thinking about what our challenges are going forward. We covered, I talked a lot about different community groups that have done a great job. So like Cornerstone Community Housing opened a new apartment complex in Springfield. We talked about like Sally Golden from the school district. She got Teacher of the Year. There's a lot of
like nationwide.
For the state.
For state still.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, and we recognized a lot of folks, Roseboro put $100 million into a mill to expand its production capability. And then, you've got people out in your Guidely like Melissa Cruz who, are a really critical volunteer for that part of the community. Springfield, we face a lot of challenges as a nation, but there's a lot of people in Springfield working really hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'm really a big fan, and that's why I keep cheerleading from the sidelines now. But I mean, I've seen the work you've done, and you have a really kind of a group approach, how would I word this? You really like to make sure there's a lot of voices being heard, and like you had alluded to, it's like talking about working with everybody, represent everybody. But I also think it's important to point out that you're a pro-business. You talk about Roseboro, because without jobs, we don't have opportunities. That doesn't mean that you can't be pro housing or pro affordable housing. There's finding that balance is the difficult strategy.
Yeah, growth, economic growth, is not going to solve all our problems, but it's going to make every one of our problems really easy, right? If it feels like wages are going up a little bit, if it feels like I have a good career progression, that just makes operating as a city much, much easier.
I'm going to talk in a bit about the contrast between you and your opponent, David Loevall, for this county commissioner seat. David Loevall is always very big on signage. He's always got a lot of big billboards and big trucks that have, they want to run you over. That these are my words that have the big Loevall stuff. And you guys have a lot of, I'm sure, shared vision, and I'm sure you have a working relationship, but also have a lot of contrast. So we'll get to that in a bit. But before we do, I want to talk about your vision beyond Springfield. So you're stepping up to the county is the goal. You're running. The election will be in May. Is that correct? So, so running for Lane County, and this is a big, like you said, this will become your full-time job. I want to give a shout out to, there's a lot of great board members, but Heather Buck has been somebody that's been fighting for our community in a long time. And so now talk about what your vision is at the county level.
Yeah, I mean, my vision really is about bringing just more collaboration to the board, right? That is a board that sometimes struggles with each other. And we really need, as Lane County, a really well-functioning board to be successful, right?
What do you mean by it struggles? I'm curious.
I mean, like,
They're just let me say this real
Sure.
quick, because you get like a Ryan Seneca, and then, you know, so that's North Eugene, and then you get like Lori Trieger, who would be South Eugene, and they're going to have very contrasting views,
Yes.
you know. So explain that a little better.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. They come from diverse backgrounds, right? And it takes just a little bit of governing's a skill, right?
Sure.
To be able to figure out how to get along with your colleagues, you know, get on the same page. How do we work forward? Like, one thing that I listen to all the time is, does everybody understand what the legislative, you know, plan is, the agenda is, and does everybody feel like they've got the same amount of information, right? So you've got, in the county, you've got headwinds around, you know, mental health delivery and healthcare delivery, and you've got budget challenges, and you've got this sense that we got to all get on the same page. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's just basic board 101. Really, for Springfield, that means we need a good partner in the county to support us on stuff like getting transportation funding for Gateway and Beltline. You know, there's one of the most dangerous intersections in Springfield is actually a county intersection, which is Bob Straub and Daisy.
Yeah.
We really need,
and 28th needs to be repaved, but
a nickel for the sponsor. We really need to be able to engage with the county to make that intersection safer. And, you know, we need them as a partner around Glenwood, right? Because as we start to connect everything together, right, like, it's going to take their support from an advocacy perspective and their help with infrastructure to get Glenwood where we need it to be. It's really just about, how do we have a conversation, get the community going the direction that we want to, and, you know, support everybody.
I think I want to make this clear too. Like, I would be somewhere in the middle of a Ryan Zenega. I hope I'm saying that right. And then Lori Trieger, because I'm not. I would like to consider myself more of an advocate than an activist at this point. But that being said, I think that everybody belongs. I think everybody needs to be heard. And so I really, really, really hope that people take a look at your campaign, because you would be a voice of reason, where you would be somewhere in the middle on some of those things, but and to just lower the temperature, you know, and
Yeah.
so I just, go ahead.
Yeah, we've got, the way I describe it to people is, like, we're not going to fix all the big problems we face tomorrow. All this stuff takes time. And my goal as a candidate, and my goal every day as mayor, is to just make progress on some of these issues, right? Like, you know, places like the 42nd Street levy, right? Like, that is a piece of infrastructure that we need to protect our community. It's not going to get fixed tomorrow, but can we make genuine progress into accomplishing that? Like, when boards and commissions work well, right? High trust means you can get through more material.
So now, why county? Why that level, and why now?
Really, it's my feeling that, you know, that Springfield needs more support at the county level around Glenwood and Gateway. It's going to take help to be able to advocate in Salem for additional, you know, dollars to invest in Gateway. It's going to take help to invest in additional dollars around Glenwood. So when we got to this point, you know, we've gone through a couple of tough years, and I needed to stand up for my community, raise my hand and say, look, Springfield's issues are not getting enough time on the docket, if you will.
Sure.
And I want to see that happen. I mean, it's a county job, right? So it's not just representing all of Springfield, but it is okay to say, we need to carve out time for, you know, Springfield's issues.
So now, okay, I want to change gears a little bit, and I love this conversation. So Chick-fil-A. So when Chick-fil-A goes in on Gateway, right, and everybody thinks, and I'm not going to get into the politics of the fact that they shouldn't exist, but that's my own take because they're anti-gay. But that being said, Chick-fil-A is a very popular restaurant. So they go in there, and then a lot of people are mad at the mayor because they think that you did this. And I want to talk about that, because you obviously don't get to decide what businesses come and go, but there was there city money because of the facts, and you can say yes or no, I don't know, but like misconceptions are that people think that it's funded by local government now to maybe reroute roads and that kind of stuff. But there's an economic push and pull here, where if it is, it's because the tax revenue that is projected is going to surpass that. Can you speak on that at all?
So that's not how land use works, right?
Right.
The whole land use system is really about getting clear about, with people who want to invest in their land, whether or not it's your house or your business, about what are the rules, right? And then what do you need to do to accomplish them? Once you set those things, saying it's zoned for a restaurant, it's zoned for a piece of road. Like people go through the process, but the government doesn't actually judge what goes there because it said, hey, you can put a restaurant there, or hey, you could put a hotel there. The big question people have is they really do have to show how they're accounting and fitting into the system from a transportation perspective and a wastewater perspective and all the things, right?
Yeah, because it's going to affect the whole big picture,
Yeah, so that's why it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
Is they come in and say, hey, I have a plan to build a restaurant. It's going to go here. Here's my plan to deal with all these issues. Everybody talks about it, but like we don't ever decide, hey, that's a restaurant we want or we don't want it.
Right.
Or that it's when we decide, hey, it's commercial that goes there, or hey, it's residential. That's when those decisions get made.
It's one of those things where people would be mad either way. So it's like they're going to be mad if you do it, and then they're going to be mad if you tell them that they can't do it. So it's just one of those things. That's a really easy segue into, we're going to talk about disaster relief. We covered this section already. So disaster relief, what I've learned from the Holiday Farms fire is that if you don't turn the power off and it's a windy night, then you're going to run the risk of having a fire, which could, we could lose homes and people and animals and just, devastation. If you do turn it off, people are like, what the hell are you doing? I want my power, So speak on how at the county level, disaster relief is so paramount. I also want to give you a little bit of an apology because I looked back at the episode that I did with you the day of the ice storm, and you had gone through so much. And you had a tracheotomy because we were on an episode of Grey's Anatomy, and they do that now to keep ratings high. No, that's not what it was. It was a very serious thing, and you and I have a good relationship where I can be a little bit humorous, and I appreciate that. But the fact is that I was kind of like, is this the right use of your time? Because you're talking to me. I feel honored that you called me and said, do you want to do an episode right now? And we only spent like 30 minutes. But I think that day, I want you to speak on this, but I guarantee you learned a tremendous amount about the difficulties of how to handle disaster relief.
Oh, yeah.
And so can you speak on kind of like the fires and then with the ice storm, what you learned from it?
Yeah, I mean, Lane County really comes back like we were living in a situation of fire and ice right now, right?
Yeah.
Like a fire and ice. And those are particularly challenging ways to respond. And some of it is planning and infrastructure and all the things, right? But also, when we went through the ice storm, it was really hard on Springfield. We had people out in the cold for a very long time.
Yeah,
and
people died
with warm food, and we had to get them relief. The biggest thing I walked away from it was, hey, there were gaps, that we had to close. Like, Springfield's got an application right now called Sarah to help coordinate information. The utility board has got ability to text people. You've seen some of that work, our outage maps. People really took 30 seconds and really thought about, what other places we need from that event. And frankly, there's still places in the city that are missing trees or that are still impacted to this day. But I think the big thing I'm still really grateful is, as a community, we really pulled together, right? Like people checked on homes, people dropped off food. They shared material to get through a really tough time.
Yeah.
And it's a good reminder about the importance of pulling the emergency kits and just go through your house and make sure you have that, that material between water and food and heat, right? Because what I really saw is when they say be prepared for 3 days, it really does take that long to get, the infrastructure in place and the supplies from the state and the coordination and the sites. And, we were dropping wood at, under City Hall to keep people warm, right? Like there is a lot of effort that we can still make as a community to do around emergency preparedness. And yes, I was very sick that week.
Oh yeah, it was tough. And I mean, I'm really grateful that you called me and wanted to do the podcast. And also I want to, I feel like a little bit of an apology because if you go back and watch it, I was very snarky and I was just learning and I was frustrated, like we all were in the moment. And you were the person in front of me that represented government. When I would ask questions, this is something I sat back and listened, I thought about. I'd ask questions about, if hypothetically, if we wanted a staging center to be used at Riverview Elementary, and you're like, well, you're going to have to ask sub. What I've learned from this, instead of giving an answer, what I've learned from this is there's an actual benefit to being a little bit not passive on it or dismissive or whatever the word is, to where you're kind of like, I don't want to overshoot my jurisdiction here, And so I actually realized that actually shows tact. because the fact is that you're not going to speak for somebody, and you knew you were trying to gear towards people being like, there's going to be a statement that's going to be made. And so when I reflect on it, I just think that I would handle it differently. So
I think that is just growth is for me as an elected official. In emergencies, I am very aware that what I say matters.
yeah,
And I cannot give out incorrect information. So what you see me do as we go through emergencies is really try to bring people back to the official sources, the resources that the cities put out, resources that the county put out, resources the utility board put out. But like there's a lot of information out there, and it's incumbent among elected leaders to make sure that when they push information out on their social media channels, that actually has some sort of validity of being,
and it's consistent.
Yeah.
It's consistent that there's like you were saying about Sarah, the program, that there's a multi-pronged approach by all these different organizations and these different committees and stuff, that they can actually have a consistent message, to the community. And I think that's good.
Yeah.
Another thing, it's like when we're talking about the ice storm, I mean, there was people that lost power for a long time, and this brings up a really interesting thing about how difficult government is, because when you have ADUs, like you have these accessory dwelling units, which is really a great thing for housing, right? Then you run the risk of then having these issues where they're not up to code because they were cutting corners and things like that. And then if a tree goes down and knocks down a power line in somebody's backyard, you don't even know where it's at, and sometimes one of the things we ran into. But I support ADUs. My point is that everybody, a lot of times, the people that are naysaying a project that can help the marginalized, they're like, what if this happens? And you're like, yeah, but that's a once in a 200-year storm. But that being said, we still have to make sure that we acknowledge that that could happen and kind of link,
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So one of the things is they restored power, right? Like there's an importance for advocating for yourself and telling people what's going on in your part of the community. The city's roughly 14 square miles, right?
Right.
And so it really is, when people say, hey, I still don't have power yet, or hey, I've got downlimbs or whatever, that actually helps government because, when they went through and were turning on all the power, we were getting emails sometimes about, hey, all my neighbors have power, but like my little cul-de-sac doesn't because it still had other issues. I guess the lesson from all of this is there's so much importance in talking to your government about what you need,
right,
and advocating for yourself. It helps everybody. And every time we get a letter from a constituent where they outline their issues, it makes it easier to serve this community.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I, I'm a registered Democrat. You said you're a non-affiliated voter, but you and I have a lot of things that we view in common, and I also really value the work you've done on the different various positions you've had. But I always feel heard. Like I always feel heard. I always know I can email you, call you, text you, and that's something that I did not expect when I got more involved in this. And so I really appreciate that. I haven't spoken to your opponent ever, and I probably should at some point, but I also don't really want to give him the platform because I'm not a fan of his style of government, because I think it represents a small community, small part of the community. And like when somebody says I'm going to vote for this person because I'm a Christian, I'm like, well, then that means you only care about a few things, and it just hurts my take on that. We'll talk about the differences and the contrast between you and him in a minute. But let's talk about your street cred. A lot of people might meet you and you're a very calculated mathematician type person, and so I don't know about street cred being the definition. So I wanted to say that what I just mentioned about feeling heard, somebody that is rough around the edges. I mean, I'm a skateboarder growing up. That I do feel heard, and I do feel kind of like you actually do take what I'm saying to heart. And so we mentioned roads, and let's talk about one more. What a little bit more deep with roads, because I think Springfield is just doing a phenomenal job. And so I guess the question would be, what have you learned about roads, and what's really coming next?
I think it's the format of how you talk to the community about it. And it reminds me about the importance as a city that we have to always be telling our story. The thing that's helped us, and I'm really grateful for the voters to support this, is as we passed road bonds, is really getting clear on, hey, if we invest in this road bond, that is going to go to fix, Mill Street, it's going to go to fix Centennial, it's going to go to fix, Q Street. And we can take you out and see, right? Like as a voter, you can go out and see, hey, look, the road's fixed, or we can provide reports about it. Roads really teach us a really good example of the community. This is a very practical community. They want government to work very effectively. And you have to really get clear about when people make investments, what it's actually doing and report back, because frankly, people are busy.
Sure. That's what a republic democracy is. It's like we hire you guys and then you guys go handle that stuff when I go be a barber, you know. I want to talk briefly about the Main Street Safety Project, which is a program you send me a lot of key people in the community that are making moves. And so Molly Markarian was the person that you had met. So she's the project manager on that. And we talked about the Main Street Safety Project. And this was what, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, maybe.
So the point is that this is an example of where I think that your style of leadership isn't about like, I know what's best for you, you don't. Because this was something that you believed in. And then when it was not popular, we scrapped it. You know, and so and maybe you can speak more on that. I mean, I don't want to speak for you that you believed in it. So talk about it.
This project started in probably 2016, right? We had a real tragedy out on Main Street.
Multiple,
where a couple of kids were tragically killed. And so what I want to make sure we do is sort of ground the fact that, it's been impactful to families.
100%.
So it is an ODOT road, road. And so as part of the ODOT road, we went through this Main Street visioning piece. It is not necessarily something that I was in love with, but by the time it got from, working at 2016 past the pandemic, and then we kind of had to talk about like, what do we do with this thing? And it was very clear at that point that the community was responsive to other investments that we made around lights, crosswalks, other sort of intersection improvements. And then we had seen a safety improvement by it that, it's something the community definitely was not interested in.
Not at all. And I've talked about it ad nauseum, and it was really neat because it was almost like career suicide. If you use, like, I support the Main Street Safety Project, it's like, you're not going to win now, because of how mad people are. I mean, and to anybody listening, it was adding like 6 roundabouts, which people are afraid of. I went to Ireland and loved them. But there's like 6 roundabouts, and then like I think that Dutch Bros on 42nd would have to be relocated. I mean, there was a lot of massive change that would have came with it.
There was a lot of massive change, and it is okay that if the government comes out and talks to people and they don't want to do a thing,
and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
I think, and like you said, the loss of life. I lived before I moved back to Eugene. I was living on 51st Street, and that is a dark corner that was one of the main spots that people would get hit, and so I mean, there's been multiple deaths on the way that people drive, kind of in that from 42nd Street to 70th or whatever, 35th. I mean, that stretch of Main Street, it's very, very dangerous and
but you can go out there. Like, I would challenge everybody's preconceptions of it, right? Like, there are improvements we need to make. It is the working backbone of the city, right? Like that, and it covers the manufacturing sector, and it is an ODOT highway. But if you go out there today, it's much more lit than what it was, 10 years ago. That was an investment we made with our ARPA funds, and the roadway improvements and the safety intersection, and the crosswalk improvements have been substantial out there. And we still continue to be open to other investments we need to make into the road. So I don't want people to sort of differentiate between, hey, it was like 9 roundabouts and bust around Main Street safety. Like we learned a ton about projects that had 1 foot before the pandemic and 1 foot after the pandemic, and how to navigate those, right?
Right.
And that thing just took too long, and it was too big.
Yeah.
But it still means we can continue to talk about, evaluate, make sure that people are transitioning through the city as safely as possible.
I think the thing that really, what I learned from your leadership, though, is that you showed, I want people to know what's happening. So let's get as many chances. And I think a podcast is a great chance for that, because you're never going to hear an hour talking about that issue. So the goal of yours, from what it seemed like to me, was to make sure that people were knowing what was proposed. And then when it was shot down, you're like, okay, well, we tried to get the word out, about it. And like you said yourself, you didn't know if you really fully supported it, but we want people to choose, because there's these proposals, and another thing you had told me one time, a lot of times when there's 3 options we can do. We can do nothing was one choice. We can do something, or we can do something dramatic, or whatever the tech. But the point is that one of the options is still keeping things the way they just, status quo. And so a lot of times people forget that, because it's like and that's what the community wanted at that point. We'll see in the future.
Well,
I mean, it's going to have to happen. I know that in River Road area and Eugene, it's a different animal. They've recalled city councilors over the EMX and all this, but it's like, if you actually look at the data that shows the future, you will have gridlock because the way that the development is happening, you won't be able to get enough cars that are going to be out there.
Well, let's just be clear on a couple of things, right? Like, just to make sure the roundabout project is dead, right? It's not happening.
Right.
But also, big pieces of infrastructure in the city are always going to be something that we're talking about and monitoring, because there's new housing and new businesses that go out there every single day, and we're always out talking about what do we want to see, what do we want to see out here. And the thing that has been most successful for me as an elected official is acknowledging that, since we serve the public, that means we can give everybody all the facts, right? And then let them make their own opinion. So the way I've approached problems up until this point is just giving people the facts, let them ask as many questions as they want about, why did we decide this, or what about this? And then, let people naturally come to their own opinion is the best way to serve people in a public setting. And like I said, there's been a lot of positive things that happen in Main Street.
Yeah. So now we're going to change gears and talk about the contrast between your opponent. So David Loevall, he at one point he was a big part of the CEDA, which is Springfield Economic and Development Association. He has been credited with having a lot to revitalize downtown. He's been involved in that a lot. I don't really know at what capacity. I think that's a group effort. I mean, that's something that he totes.
Yeah. So I think Commissioner Loevall has done a significant amount in downtown, right? That is a place that he should get a lot of credit. His buildings are beautiful, but the story of downtown really starts in the late 90s, and really it's about investments the public made around the Economic Development Agency. It's investments about where the police made, like, there's parts of the downtown where crime's gone down 90%. It's art investments. It's investments that people like David made, right? It has been a amazing story, and frankly a group effort across the community. People are so proud of what we did for downtown, and I don't want to take away his credit.
Exactly, and even I don't. I mean, I've been very critical of David Loevall just because our styles are very different. But I also think that there's things that are good. But my problem is that is that only the things you care about? Not you, him? Is it only that you care about the development of downtown, kind of thing? Because there's a phrase that is used a lot in government at all levels. It's like, we need people that have skin in the game, and it's like nails on the chalkboard for me, because I'm like, what you're saying is that you're going to profit off of this legislation. So that's what I hear every time, is that this person is going to make decisions that are going to personally benefit them. And so that's what David Loevall represents to me. So you can speak on how you contrast from that.
Well, I think once the State of the City comes out, I would just encourage people to watch it to understand what my leadership style is.
Yeah, and they can find that online, right?
Well,
not yet.
It's coming soon. It may be up there today.
Well, I'll make sure to share it when you get the links and stuff.
Yeah.
But it'll be on springfield.gov or on YouTube, and it'll be easy to find. I mean, once it's out.
Yeah, and governing and politics is a skill, right? And I think what I bring to the table right now is a lot of credibility with regional partners, so that we can kind of come back and begin to move the dial on some of these big topics that range from economic development all the way from housing, and just my depth of experience on addressing addressing political and governance issues is just significant. And what I want to bring to the table is, like, people talk so much about how comfortable and high trust and how they feel about Springfield's government. I want people to feel that same way when they talk about the Lane County government.
100%. And Lane County, I've learned so much about this. That's where really big things. One of the things that's like, if a state of emergency is claimed at the city level, when you have to choose that, and it's funny because Eugene and Springfield mayors are very different, and they're going to be different because they're different communities. So when Karin Knudsen is like, okay, we're going to do that right now because they don't care about their credit rating, then you would do it then. And I remember talking to you, I'm like, why haven't you done this yet? And you're like, well, we need to be very cautious and make sure we're making the right decisions. And so the next day, I think it was done.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting thing, because I learned that it does affect your credit rating with the federal government, how much money they're going to give you back.
Well, it's the difference between sometimes in government, right? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Getting it right and being clear with the public. I would rather take 30 more seconds to do that than really create this place where people aren't clear what's happening.
Right.
Because that's how you That's how you serve people.
Yeah. So I want to give you one more chance to talk about the biggest contrast. I mean, we talked about David Loevall's strengths being involved in downtown Springfield. Not two questions, and I want separate. So, like, what is your biggest complaint and criticism of David Loevall as an opponent?
Look, I think you've got really two questions there.
So the two questions were really, what is your biggest criticism and what is your biggest contrast?
Oh, okay. So I think we're two different people from a style perspective. And I think where I'm a person that is wanting to kind of bring people along and wanting to talk really clearly about where we need to go and kind of row in the same place, that like you can watch both the state of the county and the state of the city, just see the difference in approaches and willingness to sort of chat with people and talk to people and engage, right? I find myself saying a lot that governance and politics is a skill, right? Being able to move the dial on a bunch of these problems is a skill. And I will take the point around, what happens with Clean Lane is an example of where there needs to be more skill on the board, frankly, right? Because if people are not sure if they have enough tons to operate that facility.
You heard it here, folks. Skill on the board is more important than skin in the game, because when you're going to personally profit off the decisions you make at legislation, no, I'm not going to support a David Loevall when that's his goal. Now that one of the things he was criticized for, and I want to hear your take on this, is a treatment facility that was going to be built in Springfield. He was the lone, and it's funny because I'm so mad at this, even though it's still passed, I believe, but he was so against it because he's like, we need more time to see if this is an actual issue. There's that, and then there's something about a waste management, new location for some waste management stuff.
Yeah.
The point is, he's like, I don't want that near my community, and it's a NIMBY, which is not in my backyard, kind of approach to governance. When it's like, we're gonna have to make sacrifices to make all of us, to make sure that our community works, functions for all of us. Not,
So I can't talk about the treatment facility.
Okay, that's fine.
There was a super signing bill involved, but it's in front of the city council as far as an annexation goes. And basically, when something shows up as an annexation, right, we all have to sit there and be unbiased and act like a judge, right? So if I go spouting off about, what I think or what I feel about it.
That's fair.
You're right.
But the votes, the records have shown, he voted against the treatment facilities, the lone vote.
I think the biggest thing people need to be clear about is when you think about the county's approach to state politics, they have to get clearer about what they're actually advocating for. And it's not just, it's not this treatment facility, it's 4 or 5 things where when you talk to the broader community, people are not clear about well, the government's behind this or the government's behind that. The Board of County Commissioners really needs to publish what its legislative strategy is, because that's going to support everybody, whether or not it's a nonprofit all the way through from a business, because you're going to see places where you can actually partner. Now, the other piece to it, which is the Clean Lane piece, look, that is a big controversial topic. And I will tell you, my experience with it is I've had 5 meetings about it, 5 different sets of facts. And we could probably do a whole podcast on just what's going on with Clean Lane.
The Clean Lane is about the waste management?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And the single thing, and this is why taking 30 seconds and having a conversation matters. I'm not clear if they've got enough tons to run the thing. One group of people says they do, one group of people says they don't. And when I say the board needs to just work through things, it seems like a basic fact to me to agree upon, hey, are there enough tons to run this thing? If not, where are they coming from? If so, then we're good. We can move on to the next question. But until they get to the same page or are working off the same facts on certain issues, right? Conversation's not really going to move forward.
Yeah. So last thing, you're running for county commissioner. Who's going to be voting for you? Meaning, what block of people are going to be voting for you? And then also, this is your chance to give your stump speech.
Do you want? Are you asking for blocks of the road that are going to be voting?
No, just who in the community is going to be? You're going to be on their ballot.
It is District 2. So District 2 for the county commission is the Springfield district, and it roughly is the city of Springfield's UGB plus Moon Mountain in Laurel Hill, all the way down to CV Loop of the LCC basin down there, and then out the Mohawk Valley for a little bit. So it's significantly bigger than the city.
Has David Loevall, before he became county commissioner, had he been in public office? or was it straight to county commissioner?
I don't think he's like he served in the military
and some boards and some stuff.
Yeah, like I don't think he's
because I think that's one of the things that's really a big contrast between you guys is that you have every level of city government, then are working as the mayor. So I think it's really important for people to look into the credibility, and then also the votes. I mean, they're there, and you can see a lot of criticisms. And during the Black Lives Matter stuff downtown, the business was more important than a human life. And that's not from your words. That's a David Loevall type approach. It's like, you break my window, I'm going to shoot you. And I mean, that was shown on Eugene Weekly. They talked about this where he was standing out front with a gun. And it's like broken glass is not as important as which I'm not condoning that at all. Because I think that I'm not an activist in that way. But I just think that when you can really see somebody's character when they think that if you hurt my business, I'm going to kill you. And
look, I would just invite, I would not speculate into what his motives were in that situation. I would just invite him on and ask him the question yourself.
I think I should, but I've already said too much because it really, really got under my skin, and to see that honestly, Isaiah Wagner at the time that was going in, he met with, I think it was Mayor Lundberg at the time, and she was really great. And he just was like, will you say Black Lives Matter? She's like, all lives matter. And he's like, please just say it, acknowledge it, because I'm in front of you. And she's like, Black Lives Matter. And she did acknowledge him and meet him where he was at, because people just wanted to feel heard. Like, that's the whole point. And it's like, when people are unwilling to see that, this is why I think that you are very different than David, because you do want to make sure that people feel heard, even if you disagree with them.
I ask a ton of questions of people to make sure that I understand from their perspective. And I've learned many times, right, that don't run to solutioning when people just want to be heard. But the election's really going to come back down to, we've got problems and challenges as a county, right? The public is going to choose between what direction and what approach and what style it's going to take to begin to fix and wrap your arms around there. The biggest question I think the voters should be asking is, do you think the county commission is functioning well? If not, what do we do?
Right.
If yes, then explain your answer, and then figure out where to move from there. I will go back to the most important thing to me, which is for voters that deserve to have all the information. They should just be able to Google folks and read the material and then make up their own mind.
You want the information out there. It's about transparency. I mean, and I really appreciate that about you. Well, Mayor Sean VanGordon from Springfield, Oregon, candidate for Lane County Commissioner in Ward 1. They're District 2. District 2. Ward 1 was what you represent on the city council. So District 2 in the Lane County,
right? Like, it's got a specific name. It's District 2 Springfield.
Okay, so it represents all of Springfield. And so you've proven you've done a pretty good job as the mayor representing all of Springfield. Now it's at the county level where you're actually going to have the assets to be able to make change and be there in a time of disaster relief and those kind of things. So please, everybody listening, please look into the campaigns of the contrast between Mayor Sean VanGordon and Lane County Commissioner David Loevall for the county commissioner seat. Anybody listening, also, I want to remind you that you can go to STRPOD.com. That's my website. You can donate. Just use Patreon at this point, because that's the one that's the most effective, and I'm probably going to be phasing out PayPal and stuff like that. Also, I started a barbershop. My barbershop is called Stutz Cuts Barbershop. It's on 7th. It's 637 West 7th. Suite 1 in Eugene. It's basically, if you're going down 7th Street and you pass Taco Bell, it's the first left into the parking lot. It's the 7th Avenue Collective, which is a collective of beauticians. I'm number 1, so I'm right there on the street sign. Everybody sees the signage I did. I did a goofy little cartoon character of my face. And so for anybody that wants a haircut, go to stutzcutsbarbershop.com.
Well, do I get a discount?
I mean, half off the top, but yeah. So hey, and if you're thinning hair, that doesn't mean you can't get a cut and come chat with me. Also, if you've got some, you want to promote your podcast, or sorry, if you use my podcast to promote your social causes or your campaigns, as like what you're doing, or your business or your sports team, or if you look at my list of episodes, this is episode 248, and I have really tried to do my best to talk to the community of people that are making changes and making a difference, and then also people that feel marginalized. So it's the stories of the underrepresented of Lane County. You can do some of those at my barbershop. We can shoot some of those. So let's talk. So you can email me at patty@strpod.com. And yeah, Sean VanGordon, Mayor Sean VanGordon, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.